Hello, my name is Kevin McCaffrey. Today I will be talking about individuals who live their lives with a visual impairment. This can range from people who are completely blind, and it can also be people who still can see partially, but they have a very blurry field and cannot see the way that people with corrected 20/20 vision can. I'll be talking about various characteristics of these people, uh, various sport accommodations, and different sports that these people can participate in.
The definition of a visual impairment from the Individuals with a Disability Education Act is a visual impairment, including blindness, means impairment in vision that even when corrected adversely affects a child's education performance. This term includes both partial sight and full blindness. There are several causes of visual impairments that will occur before birth or as the child is growing in the mother's womb. However, there are also several that occur after birth and keep progressing throughout life. Some of the before birth visual impairments include albinism, which is a total or partial lack of pigment causing abnormal optic nerve development in the eye. So people with this may be very sensitive to light. They may have a very blurred vision. Their eyes may have uncontrollable movement, and they may also have trouble focusing both eyes on one object at a time. Retinopathy of prematurity, also known as ROP, occurs in some infants who are born as preemies. This results in either heavily reduced vision or just total blindness. This is due to abnormal blood vessels growing and spreading throughout the baby's retina. That's on the tissues on the back of the eye. These abnormal blood vessels that grow can leak and burst, causing the retina to basically shift positions, really scarring and tearing it up and causing blindness. Retinoblastoma is when the retina in the eye gets damaged in early childhood. This will usually require removal of the eye that is affected by this, and it can happen in both eyes, causing total and complete blindness for the child. Alright, so some causes after birth and causes that pretty much keep progressing are one, glaucoma, which this causes increased pressure in the eye. So this blocks normal fluids that flow through the eye and keep everything running smooth. People experiencing this will have increased sensitivity to light and a lot of glare too. Cataracts is a common visual impairment that will progress throughout somebody's lifetime if they do inherit it. This is when the lens in the eye is restricting the passage of light. Usually this does happen in both eyes simultaneously, so this will reduce a person's vision, ability to see, be very blurry and poor color vision. However, they still will be able to see something. Cortical visual impairment, also known as CVI. This is more of a brain issue rather than the eyes getting damaged or anything like that. Children who have this condition, their vision can change day to day. One day their vision can be very good, and then the next day it might be very poor and have a hard time seeing things in their path. Macular degeneration is exactly what it sounds like. It's just a progressive degeneration and breaking down of the macula. So the macula governs central vision, which, if is damaged, can result in sensitivity to light, poor color, and poor peripheral vision. from table 12.1 in our book, there are about 6 different classifications of individuals with a visual impairment. The first one is if someone is just declared blind. This is when they're unable to read any large print, even with a magnification. They can't see anything, basically. Legal blindness is when a person's vision is of 20/200 or less in the better eye, even with possible corrective lenses. Light perception is when somebody is able to distinguish a strong light at a distance of 3 feet from the eye, but unable to detect any hand movement from 3 feet or closer. Partial sight is someone who is able to read large print, however, they do require magnification in order to be able to read said print. Travel vision is when someone is able to see at 5 to 10 feet what the normal eye could see at 200 feet. And total blindness is unable to recognize any strong light shining directly into someone's eyes. So someone could have a laser pointer or just really bright light just shine right into their eyes and won't bother them because they can't see it. Some characteristics of individuals with a visual impairment include people who are completely blind will walk with a white cane. This white cane allows them to feel the texture of the ground so that they can tell where they're going. They'll be able to feel the different textures of the ground, so they'll be able to feel where concrete and sidewalk is versus if they're starting to walk in the grass, so they know if they're on path. And children, when they're getting used to or kind of like developing more with their impairments, they will develop some habits such as scratching their eyes and just kind of fidgeting with them. This is obviously not good habits for them to get in, so educators and parents will really deter them from doing this, trying to help them to grow out of it so they don't further damage their eyes or parts of their face. When students with a visual impairment are in the classroom, teachers must be aware of this and should be willing and need really to modify their teaching lesson and teaching skills to the needs of the student. Such accommodations can include having the student with a visual impairment sit near or in the front row of the class so that if they do have any vision whatsoever, they might be able to see the board, maybe even if it's just a little bit. But if nothing else, just be close to the teacher so that they can hear what the teacher is saying. Teachers can give quizzes and exams orally. For obvious reasons, this makes life a lot easier on the student and the teacher. The teacher should also address everyone in the class by name when they get called on or they are talking to during a class. So, if a teacher calls on something, this should be like, okay, Johnny, what's the answer to number 6? And then Johnny would answer. And then the student with the visual impairment will eventually be able to pair Johnny's voice with Johnny's name, and he'll be able to do this for the rest of his classmates so that when the class isn't necessarily in session but the kids are talking, the child with a visual impairment knows who he or she is talking to. The teachers and the students who are not visually impaired should keep in mind things like drawers, chairs, and other hazards should always be pushed in and closed at all times so that students with a visual impairment do not run into them or further hurting themselves or possibly hurting anyone else in their way. Phys ed teachers too must be aware if they have a student with a visual impairment that the student is always some way involved in the class's activity for the day. There has been some research that has both shown and suggested correlations with when a student is not able to participate in a activity in phys ed for whatever reason, that there might be motor development delays, reaction development delays, and other fitness delays. There are pretty much for any activity, really, there are a numerous amount of ways that someone with visual impairment can be included. So, for example, if the class is doing some sort of test or physical fitness test, like a 1 mile run, instead of having the student with a visual impairment just sit on the side because he can't run a mile on his own, have one of his classmates just run next to him so that he can feel and see where he's going, but then he can still participate in the activity. Other activities such as swimming can also easily be modified. The person with a visual impairment can simply just feel the lane line as they're swimming down the pool, as pictured here in the slide. And then when they get close enough to the wall, there's just a person at the end there who has a long pole with a either tennis ball or some kind of light foam on the end, and they tap the person as they're about 1 or 2 strokes out, and that person knows that he's about to turn, so he can go on to the next lap. You can now pause the video and take a short break to look up these 2 questions. You can just use Google to look them up. First one is, how many people worldwide have some sort of visual impairment? Not necessarily blind, but like just in visual impairment. And the other one is, how many people of that number are completely blind? Answers may vary depending on where you get them from, but they should be fairly close. One of the sports that is made specifically for people with visual impairment is goalball. I'm not going to go too in depth with the rules, but basically there are 2 teams of 3 on either side of the court that you can see pictured here in the slide. The goal is to throw the ball to the opposing team's net. Now, the players locate the ball based off of bells that pretty much jingle as the ball rolls across the court, so you can hear where it's at and kind of get a somewhat of a location for it. There's only one classification, and that is all players must have a visual impairment, but everyone is required to wear blindfolds so that everyone knows that the playing field is completely level. Showdown is another game made for individuals that have a visual impairment. The goal of this game is to hit the ball, which, similar to goal ball, has bells inside of it so that players can hear and try to locate where it's at on the table. Players will try to hit the ball off the sides of the table and under the clear partition between the 2 sides, and try to score by hitting the ball into the player's goal. Here's my reference page, and that is the end of my presentation. Thank you for listening.